and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. And welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Good Friday. Well, we've got a ton of stuff.
Open Line Friday.
It is that. How could I possibly forget?
You probably weren't ready, but I wanted to get it over
I wasn't ready. Well, my friends, it is Open Line Friday on the program. This is the day where we talk about, well, whatever you want to talk about. You see, the rest of the week, when I actually do turn on the phones, you kind of have to, be in my lane. Talk about the things that I care about. Not on Friday. On Friday, we open up the phone lines, and it is whatever you want to talk about. And so the phone number, if you want to be part of the program today, is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Whatever's on your mind, go ahead and give us a call. There's plenty of stuff to talk about. It never fails that, Fridays, it's either all or nothing. Either you're looking for something to talk about, and it feels like it's just, there's nothing there. It's just a desert.
We should do a Friday evening show because a lot of, there's always the proverbial Friday dump.
Yeah, the Friday news dump
comes out.
But that wasn't the case today. Today, there is going to be plenty of stuff to talk about.
Nor was it the case in Jesus' time.
No, it wasn't.
It should be Good Wednesday, but I won't belabor that point. I will.
Yeah, well, it is Good Friday. And, I was having coffee this morning, and it just struck me that it is Good Friday, and we should probably talk about that for a little bit. Before we started the show, Ken and I were having a back and forth. And, it seems in American culture that we only celebrate things on certain days. And in truth, we should be celebrating them every day. One of those that Ken brought up is communion. Now, Jesus said that do this whenever you come together, do this in remembrance of me, which he meant every time you come together. He didn't mean, once a month or every other week or once every 2 months or, when we get around to it in 6 months. It wasn't meant that way. It was meant to, remember Jesus every time you come together.
Well, that was the reason the early Christians came together. In fact, you'll even find that in Scripture. And I guess if we're not coming together for that reason, what has made it more important?
Well, yeah. And, and the other thing that I try to remember is that around this time of year, Easter, I refer to it as Resurrection Day, not Easter. But around the resurrection, Christmas, it seems like people's hearts are a little bit more open to the Word of God. And, for that, I'm thankful. And okay, so some people only go to church on Easter and and Christmas. But the hope is that, you know, God touches your heart when you're there and says, hey, you know, maybe you ought to be studying the Word of God a little bit more.
Look at it this way, and I don't know who started Valentine's Day. Maybe it was Hallmark or
It could have
somebody
been,
like
yeah.
that. The chocolate candy makers. But we have a day-
Enterprising capitalists.
Yeah, we have a day set aside to specifically remember our loved ones. Okay, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But I kind of liken it to, we have a day where you remember to do what you should do every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just my personal.
No, I think that you're right.
Yeah.
But being Good Friday, I think that we should probably talk a little Jesus here.
Well, and the other side of it is we often celebrate things on a day that is not even related. Christmas, for example,
Right.
not the day that Jesus was born. Jesus was not crucified on a Friday. I know that sounds like sacrilege to a lot of people, but
Well, I mean, I think your point is well taken. And here's another one. Okay, so the three wise men at Christmas. The three wise men did not show up the night Jesus was born. It probably took them a lot longer. I mean, they did see the star, and they did say, "Okay, we're going to go see the king," but they didn't show up that day.
yeah, and when they did get there, the scripture says they came to the house where they were staying,
Yeah, well,
not the manger.
right. Okay, so the point being is that, all right, so maybe we ought to be in church a little bit more often than we are, but being Good Friday, I think that we should talk about it. And where I want to begin this is when Jesus was in front of Pontius Pilate, and Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" And Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and that no man comes to the Father except through me." I probably just butchered that, but it was pretty close. But, you know, when Pilate says, "What is truth?" and Jesus replies, "Well, I am truth. I am the way, and I am the life." That, to me, is one of the more essential parts here. You know, we spend a lot of our time reading philosophy and this author and that author, and we sit around in our groups and we try to figure out what the truth of the thing, you know, truth of the matter is. And, you know, all right, look at me. I've got this program and we've got the open range record, and we try to tell you the truth on there. Truth with a little t. The truth we're here that I'm referring to is truth with a capital T, and that is the truth of the Word of God. And so he was in front of Pontius Pilate, and maybe we ought to talk about another part here. Pilate didn't want to crucify Jesus, I don't think. And he gave the crowd a choice. And Ken, what did the crowd say?
Give us Barabbas. Give us Democrats.
Give us Barabbas.
I'm sorry, that's probably not taking the right attitude. Yeah, there's also another point where Pilate says something very similar to, "Don't you realize that I have the power to set you free?"
Yeah.
You realize how that would sound to Jesus, because he's the one that has all power and has
Right. Right. I mean, Jesus was probably like, "Yeah, right, dude, whatever."
Yeah, and I can truly set you free.
Uh-huh.
And there are so many things in there that are fun. So if you get down and you read the story, and you read it for what it says, not what you think it says, or what you want it to say, or what some preacher told you it said, but what it actually says, it comes in a whole new light.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you know, we talk about politics every single day on the program. And, you know, when Ken says, "Give us Barabbas," I think that is, that deserves a little bit of reflection, because it is so often in our culture, we're those people, you know.
Yeah. We know something is bad for us. We know it's not best that we have boogers, big government Republicans.
Right.
Because of where that leads. But it's so hard to do things the right way, especially when there's resistance from those who have other ideas in mind. Very hard to do it the right way. Sometimes you just kind of want to give up. And we can't do that.
Well, let me give you an example. So one of my the bane of my existence during the legislative session is convention of states. And I'm very passionate that we don't destroy the Constitution. And, I make a big effort to try to convince everybody that, maybe we shouldn't open up the Constitution and put the whole thing in peril. Well, the debate was going on the floor, and Ken, you made you always make some wise comments to that. But there were so many people that got up and said, we have to do something. We have to do this. The federal government is out of control. We've got to do something. And Ken sent me a message, and all it said was, give us Barabbas.
Yeah. We've got to do something. Okay, so we made the argument several times, and I think rather eloquently, I might say.
Well, you said it, so of course it was eloquent, right?
That the Constitution isn't the problem. And if I went a couple of years ago, my argument went along the lines, if you're a good mechanic, you know how to remedy things. You know that you're not just changing parts. You can diagnose it, get to the bottom of what's really the problem. And the problem is voter apathy.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. See, we've completely taken it off of Christ.
Well, no, we're getting back there.
Yeah. But if you have to be honest with yourself, and sometimes that idea of we have to do something, so I'll just do what I can.
Right.
And we'll call that good. You apply that to salvation. Well, I have to do something, so I'll do what I can. I'll go to church every Sunday.
The rest of the time, what are you doing?
Yeah. And eventually, where Christ is concerned, you come to the point that I can't do what's necessary to fix it. And you have to trust him. You have to put your trust in him.
Yeah.
And that's the essence of the gospel.
Well, so probably the best recounting of what happened, I think, and Ken, you might have a different opinion, but is in the book of Luke. If you need a little direction here, it's chapter 23. And it starts the crucifixion part of it. Well, I guess really when you get down to it, the whole crucifixion, like the whole Bible's about it. But anyway, in chapter 23, and it starts in verse 33, he's crucified, and there's two other criminals up there with him. And an interesting part to this is that Jesus says, tonight you'll be with me in paradise. And, it was two other people that, the Romans and everybody had condemned to death. And through Jesus, he told them, tonight you're going to be with me in paradise. Another interesting one.
Actually, I'm not trying to.
You are trying to nitpick it, but go ahead.
He tells one of them.
One of them. Okay.
But that's another detail.
Yeah, well, you, Mr. Details. So, verse 34, this one, he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing. And so he's asking forgiveness from God for the people that crucified him. Now, think about that just for a second, that, the very people that celebrated him walking into Jerusalem, and, he, entered as a hero. And a couple days later, those same people are saying, put him up on the cross and we'll take the criminal. It's people are fickle. And here he is asking for forgiveness for the people that put him on cross. And let me just read to you. Let's start here in verse 35. It says, and the people stood by looking on, and even the rulers were sneering at him, saying, he saved others, let him save himself, if this is the Christ of God, his chosen one. And the soldiers mocked him, coming up to him, offering him sour wine, and saying, if you're the king of the Jews, save yourself. Now, there was also an inscription above him that said, this is the king of the Jews. Now, this morning when I was driving to the studio, I was struck by the irony of that. They're mocking Jesus, and he knows that in the end, that none of what was happening was about, this temporal place that we're in. It was about, everlasting life. And that the guy who was really winning it was him and everybody. He, in a broader context, he came to this world knowing everything that was going to happen, to live amongst us and then die amongst us for all of our sins. And for a long time growing up, it was hard for me to understand why we would call such a thing Good Friday. Well, there's a piece on the Open Range Record this morning, and it's written by your lovely bride, Ken, and it's entitled "This Changes Everything." And let's see, let me find it here, and let me just start in verse 42. And he was saying, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, you shall be with me in paradise." And it was now about the 6th hour that darkness fell over the whole land until the 9th hour, the sun being obscured, and the veil of the temple was torn in two. And Jesus, crying out with a loud voice, said, "Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last. Now when the centurion saw what had happened, he began praising God, saying, "Certainly this man was innocent." And all the multitudes who came together for the spectacle, when they observed what had happened, began to return, beating their breasts. And all his acquaintances and the women who accompanied him from Galilee were standing at a distance seeing these things. And, it was after that, the days that followed, where they, put Jesus in the tomb. And when Mary went to check on it, the stone had been removed from the tomb. And of course, I'm getting into, Easter Sunday, or, like I said, what I call Resurrection Day. But one point, and since we're not going to be on the program until next week, I just want to go through this. Now, the Romans knew what would happen if Jesus's body came up missing, that if something happened. A lot of this was politics, too. Pontius Pilate knew that he had a powder keg on his hands. So what did he do? He put this giant stone in front of the tomb, a stone so big that no single person could move it. And then to just, make sure that nobody moved it, he put a bunch of soldiers in front of it to guard the tomb. And when Mary shows up, not only are the soldiers gone, the stone in front of the tomb is gone. And Jesus' body is not there. And then, maybe next week we'll get into what happened afterwards. But Jesus then shows up and talks to Mary. So, this, like Ken said when we started this segment, we celebrate these things on, one time of the year, when in reality we should be celebrating them every day of the year. But just remember today that Jesus died for your sins, and that it was the perfect example of the love of God being victorious over all of these piddly little things that we worry ourselves with every day, and that we talk about every day on this program. So there's what I wanted to talk to you about on Good Friday. Ken, anything to add?
Just that some people's objection to my attitude about, why do we just reserve it for one day, or, the New Testament church came together specifically for the purpose of observing the Lord's Supper, remembering Christ till he comes again. That's why they came together. And some people say, well, if you take communion every Sunday, it just kind of becomes commonplace. And I understand that argument. But apply that to your own marriage, your own relationship with your spouse. Should you tell them you love them every day?
Every chance you get.
Yeah. And you might just say it without really thinking about it, but that's what you got to fight against. And that's the purpose for coming together, is to hold each other accountable and remind each other of that. And I feel like if you're going to be a Christian and take on that name, you should not take the Lord's name in vain, which is really what it means. That you don't allow yourself to be called after him and take it lightly or inadvisedly.
Right.
As if that word is used in the English version of the Bible. Anyway, either get in, get out, or get run over. If you're going to do it, Let's do it
Well,
right.
and all of that being said, I encourage you all to, if you don't go to church, if you don't get together and study the Bible, or if you don't go to a Bible study, go find a church. Go find some people that to worship God with. Go find some people to talk about Easter with, and probably more importantly, if you know people that maybe need to hear the Word of God a little bit, or maybe your friends or your family that don't necessarily go to church or don't study the Word, you need to be the one to reach out to them and try to bring them along and say, hey, come on, let's go talk about this.
That's actually what Diana and I did when we left the last church, and that's a long story, and it's fine. Now occasionally people see us and say, oh, well, where are you going to church? We're not going to church.
Well, the church is not a building.
Virtually every day I'm spending with other Christians, and then once a week, or sometimes more or less, we have several people that Diane and I are both working with. And,
Sure.
And one young couple comes every week and sits down with us, and we study Scripture. And that, along with the day-to-day interaction with people that are dedicated to Christ, most of whom, by the way, happen to be affiliated with the legislature.
Right.
There's some great people there.
Oh, there are. And, it's so often we get caught up in this program is a good example of that. But we get caught up in the day-to-day politics of things, and we don't often realize why we're all here and what we should be doing.
I did want to say something about the politics of it, because you mentioned during the crucifixion discussion that that it was political. Part of
it was.
What made it political in the beginning, in part, was, you remember the Pharisees, the priests, the leaders of the Israeli. They were upset because here comes this preacher, and everybody's following him, and they're losing their control. Now, parallel that to the Bookers, the establishment, big government Republicans. What makes them so angry at us is that people are naturally following the truth and not going along with the status quo and what was always there. When you put the truth against a lie, the truth shines.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that's what we're doing. And boy, those phonies don't like it.
No, they don't. And one more thing, like one of my, man, I keep saying this, but one of my favorite verses, or events around this time is when Jesus goes into the temple. Now, just so he enters Jerusalem, and he pretty much enters it, as a celebrity, great crowds, and you got to think, right, that he knew what was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he probably knew it all along, but he goes into Jerusalem, and I kind of think maybe part of him was thinking, well, I'm going to show him. Watch this. And so he goes to the temple, and the temple is full of the money changers, people doing business in the temple, and it depends on which version, which translation of the Bible you have. But there's a phrase in there. It says that he fashioned a scourge of cords. Okay, so it was a whip. And so he walks into the temple, he makes a whip, and he just goes after him. Well, that upset, the political establishment. One more thing that upset the political establishment. And so, it wasn't just, it really wasn't the Romans. It was the establishment, like Ken said, that was like, man, we got to do something with this guy. He's going to upset everything. And, he obviously wasn't going to stop. And so they made the decision, well, we got to kill him.
That's why Pilate had the position that he has. So this is an internal problem. Why are you bothering us with it?
I mean, the Romans,
amongst yourselves.
Generally speaking, the Romans let the Jewish officers handle everything. I mean, I shouldn't say everything, but I mean, it was kind of, like you said, Pilate was sort of the overseer,
a real problem,
right?
They had to take it to the governor, and most of the things you'll settle amongst yourselves. We did that with our kids too. Go outside and settle it.
If you can't, I had a boss like that once.
I want to say one last thing before we leave this crucifixion thing, because I don't know, and I won't go into it now, but how many have seen or heard graphically portrayed what actually happens at a crucifixion and all of the agony that goes into it, and combined with having been whipped 39 lashes. Many people didn't even survive the lashing. And you think of all of that and how horrible it was. And yet what was most horrible, and I say this in light of you mentioning Jesus knew what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, he cries out, my God, why have thou forsaken me?
Mm-hmm.
For as long as he has existed, he had been God, with God. And at one point, he becomes sin, and God turns his back on him. And I've been betrayed by people, by family, by friends, by others, and that has to be the most bitter. I look back over my 64 years of life, and those are the most bitter memories, are betrayal. And when you look at that separation between the Christ and his Father, and the betrayal that occurred and how unjust it was.
Or he thought.
Jesus didn't do anything wrong. And yet, and that is the miracle of the sacrifice, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it's, we often, when I get the chance to pray during communion, I always try to remember to remind everybody that one drop of his blood covers all the sins of the world.
So why didn't they just prick his finger?
That wasn't the plan. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll get into the politics. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. It's Friday, Good Friday on the program, and it is also Open Line Friday. So if there's something you want to talk about, and trust me, there's plenty of stuff to talk about. The phone number here in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Well, Ken, did you see where the governor just couldn't come up with a good argument, and he just exploded in the State Lands and Investment Board meeting. Did you see that one?
I absolutely did.
It's
so precious.
It was precious. I think that we should let everybody else watch it too. Actually, you know what? Let's back up to the first one. It's the other video in there, but this is where Governor Gordon challenges Chuck Gray to a fight. Go ahead and play that one.
I think to cast aspersions on the Attorney General, former justice, I just don't think that's a good idea, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, hold on, please. I take deep umbrage at you saying I cast aspersion. He stepped in and
step outside. You want to step outside?
Are you threatening me?
No, I'm asking if you want to step outside.
Are you threatening me? I've never seen anything.
Mr. Chairman.
That is a stand.
Mr. Chairman.
Look, Mr. Chairman, back to the issues. Please stop interrupting. Mr. Chairman, I just asked that we have the Attorney General not undercut the will of the board in the next month before we hear this.
And that was answered.
Right. So what was going on there is it was a lawsuit over one of their stupid wind projects, and a judge struck it down and said, no, this thing isn't going to go forward. And then the Attorney General, Keith Couts, took it upon himself to say, I'm going to appeal this ruling. And there wasn't any discussion at the State Lands and Investment Board. He just said, I'm going to appeal this. And so that's what precipitated that little back and forth. And think about this. The governor, Chuck Gray lives in the governor's head rent-free, man. That the governor couldn't control that meeting to a point where he just lost it and said, all right, let's step outside.
The more he loses it, the cooler Chuck gets.
Yeah. And that's what irritates him more than.
Because most people rise to the level of the confrontation. If my voice goes up a little bit, yours is going to come up a little bit. If I lean in toward you, you're going to lean toward me. Chuck doesn't do that. He just says, gotcha.
Yeah. He just gets more calm and more calm. Well, the same kind of thing happened yesterday at the SLIB board. We call it the SLIB board, but really, SLIB stands for State Lands and Investment Board. So it's really like saying the State Lands and Investment Board when we say that, but grammar. All right. So yesterday, the governor tells Chuck Gray to shut up. Play that one.
How does that go through the office? What processes occur there? Because right now, this is just kind of a little bit pie in the sky if we don't know how to implement it. That's the most important thing to me.
Push pause just for a second. All right. So what they're talking about is a citizenship check for one of these affordable housing units, that if you're going to get a benefit from the state, that first we should probably make sure that you're a citizen. And that seems pretty commonplace to you and me. How many applications or pieces of paper have you filled out that said, "Are you a citizen?" And you just check the box. Well, people who are not citizens do that also.
Yeah, so kind of like voting. Yeah, you gotta have to show a real ID to vote.
Exactly right. It sounds like something normal that we should do. And this so-called affordable housing thing has become such a boondoggle. That there's a lot of pieces to it. And frankly, Ken, try to make a note that we need to get my pal Rebecca on here to just refresh all of this affordable housing business. Because honestly, it is your tax dollars going to East Coast developers. And then, to add insult to injury, people who are not even citizens or don't even qualify are, being allowed in these places. So what Chuck Gray is doing is trying to put a citizenship check on, an actual check to see if these people are citizens. And so this transpires.
We could keep going for quite a while on this.
Let's have a question.
We're inaccurate things that were said there. I got to respond to this.
You don't have to respond.
I
but
like the inaccuracies.
And there's a lot of inaccuracies that fly around this place here.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I have to address that.
I have to address that.
Sitting there, there are a lot of inaccuracies that fly around here, and that's kind of a common tactic that they take.
Yes.
They can get away with anything and everything over and over and over again, and nobody says anything. But let one of us, and all hell breaks loose.
Well, and and what they do, Ken, is they say, well, that's not true. That doesn't happen in Wyoming.
Yeah.
And without any evidence whatsoever. And you know, it doesn't seem to matter how much evidence we have. You know, how many times this sort of thing has happened over and over. The immediate response is, well, that's not true.
And then they do what you see here is they want to throw that back at you at every opportunity, but not allow you an opportunity to respond. And that's what's so frustrating is, you know, my first couple of years there, all of the chairmen were on their side. We didn't have any chairmen.
Right, none.
Yeah. And now that the shoe's on the other foot, it really causes some consternation. But to me, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, Gordon represents the very worst of the worst. He represents what was at one time called the Wyoming Caucus, the Boogers. He's the quintessential version of that.
He's a redcoat.
And he's so thinly veiled, and this is what's so perfect about it, is it show you how they cannot stand to have a discussion about the issues. They either have to be in control or they have to try to destroy you.
Well, and there's something else at play here too. And if you wouldn't mind my my little debate geekiness going, you know, rearing its ugly head. So in an argument, and I know that just about everybody that is listening to this program has seen this. You're having an argument with somebody, and you know there's no response to what you're actually saying, and so the volume goes up. And what you know, if you're not in possession of the facts, and if the argument is not on your side, there's this innate, you know, response. I don't know if you want to call it, you know, a animal type response, but the thinking is that the louder you get, you know, the more emphatic your point will be. And when that doesn't work, well, then the next step is you start calling somebody names. Well, you're an idiot if you don't understand this. And you see this a lot on social media. You know, the immediate response to any logical point is, well, you're an idiot and you just don't understand what's going on. Oh, ha. Or the stupid emoji faces. I love those, you know, the little puke face or whatever. But what they're doing is trying to discredit you as a person. I mean, it doesn't really have anything to do with the argument. And then when that fails, well, then you just have to stop the conversation because you know, you're not in control of it anymore. And so the immediate response is, well, you just need to shut up, which is what happened. Let's go ahead and watch the rest of it, Ken.
Okay, I backed it up a couple of seconds.
Okay.
You don't have to respond.
I
but
don't like the inaccuracies.
but there's a lot of inaccuracies that fly around this place here.
Yeah, that's not true.
Chairman,
And
question?
Mr. Chairman, hold on.
Stop. Shut up.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
have the superintendent, then I will recognize you.
you're violating your rules currently.
I
You just referred to me in a negative fashion. You're violating your own rules for decorum.
We're going to pause for a bit. Come on.
Are you?
Okay, you know what he just said. Are you threatening me?
Okay.
Okay, so they took a break, and that break in the meeting, it's a long time.
Several minutes.
Several minutes.
And that's to me is the best part of the whole thing is he completely loses it, takes Chuck outside, and the screen goes black. We're in the meeting room.
Yeah, intermission.
Yeah.
We got to go to a break.
Play a little music in the background.
But I mean, but it's exactly what I was talking about there. Like the governor lost control of that, and you heard Chuck say, "Well, no, there's a lot of stuff we got to respond to here." And at that point, you know, the governor didn't want to hear whatever was going to come out of Chuck's mouth, and so immediately it was shut up, you know, and then, you know, let's go outside, and then you could hear part of Chuck's responses. Are you threatening me?
I think the other side of that is, what would it be like? I've been in some tense committees. In fact,
No, not you.
I was chairing one when Chuck and Kurt were both in there, and I think Christie was in there as well. So I got 3/5 of the SLIB board in a committee meeting that I'm chairing, and they start
Going back and
and
forth.
forth a little bit.
Did you bang the gavel?
And I did. I had to gavel them down and start over. But what would happen if I just lost it and yelled, "Shut up"? Do you think I would keep my chairmanship?
No, you wouldn't.
No way in hell.
You know, another good example of that, Ken, and I don't know if you were at this GOP meeting or not, but it was a GOP meeting in Sheridan, and Brian Miller, the state chairman, was in there. And he didn't like what was going on, and he just explodes. And I've got an audio recording of what happened. Now, the coolest part of it is the chairman, James Temple, who is now running for House District 29, he stands up and very calmly says, "Now, your meeting is in a couple of weeks. This meeting is mine.
Yeah.
You can either calm down or you can leave." And he did it very calmly.
Yep.
And even though it was a pretty tense meeting, he was able to, corral everybody and to allow the meeting to continue. But when you allow it to get to the point where you're telling somebody to shut up and step outside, you have absolutely lost control.
Yeah.
And think about what it was all about. Just asking that people prove that they're a citizen. And here's
before receiving some benefits from the state.
Yeah. Now the your tax dollars too. It's not benefits from the state. It's your tax dollars. Now this continues, and there's what they're discussing is the amendment that Chuck brought to do a little citizenship check. So let's listen to like another minute of it.
Okay. I didn't know you were going to do that, so I'm going to have to move it forward.
Okay. Well, it's okay. It's Friday. I mean, we can. Oh, there it starts. Mm.
Come on.
Are
Okay.
you?
Okay. There we are.
All right, let's put it back up on the
So
screen we can watch
I've
it.
got the superintendent and I've got the
all right.
secretary, I guess maybe the treasurer. I want to try to bring us to some resolution here.
Notice how calm he is
and
now.
I want to try to keep it on a topic that is not just point counterpoint. So
I wanted Chuck to come back out of that with some shoe black under his eye.
superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one option that I was willing to make is a motion to table this to our April 23rd treasurer's session.
Okay, stop.
Because I think
Now, this is the point I wanted to get to, because before the blow up, it was you heard Degenfelder trying to say, "Now I'm going to make a motion," and then Chuck kind of shut her down a little bit. But the question is, should we be checking the citizenship of these people that are getting tax dollars? Seems pretty reasonable to me. And yet, one of the people that claims to be a conservative is saying, no, let's just table this. So let's not actually talk about the issue. Let's not come to a resolution. No, let's kick the can down the road, and we'll discuss this later. Okay, so
We'll wait for a day when Chuck can't be with us.
well, maybe I don't know.
I don't know.
But there's a lot of questions that I have surrounding Megan Degenfelder. And, actually, the story that I've got next in the stack of stuff is about her. But considering what's happened this week, I mean, I think that there's some serious questions that needs to be asked of that candidate for governor. And I'm talking about Megan Degenfelder. And Megan, if you're watching this, or if one of your minions is, you're welcome to come on the program and let's talk about this. Because I think people deserve an explanation of, one, the story that I'm going to tell you about here in just a second, and two, that the behavior that's been happening on the SLIB board. And I mean, it really is a bunch of high school kids, the way that they're behaving. And you got the top 5 people that are elected in this state, and this is the stuff that we have to watch. I mean, your tax dollars at work for sure.
And a lot of people will try to put the blame on Chuck. Chuck is simply standing up for what he, and frankly, what I think are right, and I think most of you think that, against 4 other people that just really don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, and you talk about, the governor living rent-free or Chuck living rent-free in the governor's mind. Every time you hear Chuck speak, he's not running against the governor, but that's going to come up.
Oh, yeah.
And Chuck knows what he's doing. And he's pushing buttons. And the reason he's putting them, I think, it's just what Ken thinks, I think is to get reactions like this to expose them for the immaturity that we're actually dealing with.
Well, yeah.
They can't sit down and have a calm discussion about the issues. And if you force the issue and say, we really need to have a discussion, well, let's table it. We'll come back later.
Right. I mean, that right there is, I mean, what the governor was doing is pretty offensive, but saying, no, we're not even going to talk about this. Let's just table this and we'll move on. And and this is just, when I hear the word table, when there's a motion, at a GOP meeting, or if I'm sitting in a city council meeting, when I hear a tabling motion, what immediately comes to my head is they're hoping this won't come up again, that we'll forget about it. And we'll just push it off. But just for just a second, we're talking about giving taxpayer money to people that aren't even citizens. That's what that amendment was about.
Exactly. How simple is that? There should be nobody at that table that would bat an eye and saying, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you listen to the video, and I encourage you to go back and watch it, it's on the Cowboy. But if the conversation continues and it's, well, how do we check to see if somebody's a citizen? Well, maybe the sheriff can do that anyway. Why does the Office of State Lands need to deal with this? This is just too cumbersome. Well, it's not. Everybody, and maybe it's not this way anymore, but it used to be when you hired somebody at a business, you had to check and see if you could actually employ them. I mean, this is not, as Ken would say, rocket surgery. All right. Well, that's Governor Gordon. Let's see here. You know what? Let's go ahead and take another break because this next topic, it's going to take me too long to go through. So we'll take a break. We'll come back to Open Line Friday. Go ahead and give me a call, 307-374-8989. And we'll have, Ken, if you could put the number up on the screen for him. We'll be back in a minute. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Friday. It's Open Line Friday, 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. Well, Ken, I have just been busted. The lovely Christine noticed that I brought our snobby coffee to the studio. And I don't think that I've talked about this before.
How is that my problem?
Well, it's not.
I bring the even snobbier coffee from home because I don't want to drink the crap that she brings.
Well, what is this, do you think? And it's not crap. We have Black Rifle coffee in the green room.
I had to throw that in on our Lloyd Larson and Chip.
Yeah, well, so anyway, yeah, I've been busted, and Christine and I are coffee snobs. It is true.
Not if you drink that stuff.
Well, no, we are. So I will actually drive to Buffalo for the only reason, or only one reason, to get coffee. And so this morning I had a full pot of coffee at the house, and I thought I'm going to take it to the studio with me. And so it's true, I have been busted as a coffee snob.
Did you short her on some of her coffee?
No, I left her some.
See, you want to know coffee snobs.
Yes.
We have a gal in Jackson, snob.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying the gal's a snob. We are.
Okay.
And she has been custom roasting and grinding our stuff for 25 years.
So I am not a coffee snob. You are.
That's what I'm saying. Not by relative,
Wow.
If you...
Wow. Is it good coffee?
Oh, man.
So where is it? Is it, does she have a store? Or?
Well, we used to. Diane was a barista. She was trained as that. And then when we were in Thermop,
You had the coffee shop?
Business there, Coyote Coffee. And we got to where we like good coffee.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the few pleasures in life.
Yeah, and then I go to the legislature for 2 months.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and take a call. And this is Dawn, one of our fantastic journalists at the Open Range Record. Dawn, how are you doing this morning? Hello, Dawn. How are you this morning? Oh, maybe I should unmute you. There you go. Now you're unmuted. How are you this morning?
That wasn't me.
I'm good. I'm good, David. How's Ken doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. So what's up? What's on your mind?
Well, I think we should just talk about Megan for a few minutes.
Well, you are calling in at the right time, so that was next on my
I think
list.
it's time to take a break.
No, now. All right. So, so we published that article yesterday about the releasing of sensitive and confidential information from several parents in Rock Springs. What do you got for us this morning?
Well, I've been going through a lot of the social media posts, and a lot of these parents, they're saying now because the FERPA has been, violated,
Yeah.
that one of their ways that they could do that is a federal lawsuit, but that's going to take too long.
Right.
I'm just wondering, with the whole Trump endorsement and the FERPA violation, how that's going to ring well with Trump.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and it's this is a big issue because, in my mind, the superintendent of public instruction, I mean, her job is to deal with schools and parents, and this was a big oopsie. Now, I think that Megan had her finger on the button that said send these documents? No, but definitely somebody in her office did. And I've heard several people say that really, she's not in the office all that much.
Neither's anybody else. They say somebody in the office. Somebody paid out of her office, but they were probably working from home.
Yeah, it could have been.
Which that's okay. It is what it is.
Yeah. All right. So what do you think? What do you think's going to happen going forward, Don?
Well, I think she kind of might have sank her chances at becoming our next governor.
Well,
That's what I think. I think there's a lot of people, the comments on social media, I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, this has really damaged her. And I kind of think that when you're in the position you're in, you need to do the job that you were hired to do and do it well before asking for a step up.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, if you can't manage an office like that, how are you going to manage the whole state?
Right. So that's a few things that I just had to say this morning, but watch for the next article to drop, my friends.
All right. So we're planning on dropping that one this afternoon.
Yep, if you're comfortable with it.
Oh, of course I am. So we'll
Hey, there's some inside baseball for you there.
There's some inside baseball for you. So we do have another piece coming this afternoon, and so just watch for it. It'll be on the Open Range Record. Don does some incredible work for us, and man, Don, you are a writing machine, is all I can say.
I think, Don,
Well, thank you.
before you go start your vehicle, you probably ought to get one of those mirrors on a long pole. Give it the little once around you.
Yeah, I know. It's getting a little hot, that's for sure. But I've got broad shoulders and I'm not scared.
All right. Well, Don, thank you for calling in, and I'll look for the article. Make sure that you keep an eyeball peeled on the Open Range Record. We'll have that article coming up. Thanks for calling, Don. And if you want to be part of the show and you got something on your mind, whether it's Degenfelder or if it's Governor Gordon telling Chuck Gray to shut up in a meeting or whatever, go ahead and give me a call. The phone number is 307-374-8989. So let's go to the cow pie. An article entitled Megan Degenfelder apologizes for, quote, unredacted student info release. So the unredacted part is in quotation marks. So the biggest problem with this article is that it doesn't necessarily tell you the facts on the ground, which is nothing unusual for the cow pie. But really, you read this, and the only thing that Claire McFarland did is take the statement that was given to that was sent out by the Wyoming Department of Education, Megan's people, and the statement that was sent out by Superintendent of Schools, Libby, in Sweetwater County, and just took the statement as gospel. And you shouldn't ever do that. Like if you're a journalist at all, you should be critical of just about everything, because you know that you're talking to a politician. And you know how you can tell how most politicians, when most politicians are lying, don't you? Oh,
You said you should be critical of most everything, and I know
You should
exactly
be.
what you meant. And words mean things.
They do.
Thank you, Russ. Take a second and explain what you meant by the word critical there. It doesn't mean that you're going around criticizing everything.
No, that's not what I meant.
No.
Good call, Ken. When I say be critical of everything, I mean ask questions. Ask, hey, is this the truth? Can we prove that this is true from what they're saying? Can we prove that that's true? Like, use your noodle. Engage in some critical thinking to say, okay, we know that there are usually three sides to every story. There's your side, my side, and then there's the truth. What
my side.
Well, yeah, that's how most of us tend to lean. But be critical, right? Use your critical thinking skills and say, is this actually the truth? And that is not what happened with the cow pie. Now, before I get into this, in this entire investigation that we've done over this release of confidential information, I think that I have to give some credit to Superintendent Libby over this thing. He, in his first records request, and we're going to publish this in the article on the Open Range Record, but he specifically says that I understand that there is sensitive information in here that needs to be redacted. Please redact it. I'm fully aware of what needs to be taken out of here. Just send me the other stuff. And I mean, there's a pretty good list that he has in his records request where it's very clear that he's not even asking for any of that student information. He wants to know the information surrounding it. And so, I mean, through all of this reporting, I mean, we tend to think that the school board is the bad guy, and maybe there are some people on that school board that are maybe not doing things the right way. But I don't think that Superintendent Libby, Dr. Libby, excuse me, is among them. In reading all the documents, it looks to me like he did what he was supposed to do. And even so, when he found that the documents he was sent were unredacted, he sent another request saying, hey, I think we got a problem here. All right, so let's go to the piece. And McFarland writes, quote, Superintendent of Public Instruction Megan Degenfelder has apologized for her department's release of unredacted student information in a public records request. She said the release was the result of human error, and those involved have been reprimanded. Wyoming's top educator apologized this week after the Wyoming Department of Education released unredacted student information in a public records request in violation of department's policies and probably in violation of several different laws. Wyoming Superintendent, let's see here, quote, this is the statement from Degenfelder's office, and I want you to listen to this very closely. Quote, the unfortunate release of limited unredacted information was in violation of the department's policies and was the result of human error. Okay, so Ken, in that opening sentence, it says limited unredacted information. What does the word limited mean?
It's kind of relative depending on the scope of things, you know.
Right.
Unlimited
means everything.
And that's not even possible. So anything that was released would technically be limited if you wanted to go down there. But I think by using that word limited, we're already trying to put the genie back in the bottle. We're trying to make it look like it's not as big a deal as it was. Now, it was the result of human error. And I've got to say, if you're Megan Felder, what should you do?
I don't know what you can do.
Yeah. So I think, play a little bit of devil's advocate, I think she's trying to do the right thing. But when you look at the terminology in her message, and then when you look at the terminology in the article of the Cowboy, which is, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that here in just a second.
Then you can see behind the words, you can see what we're trying to do with these words. And that first sentence, what it's trying to do is make us look, this wasn't a huge deal. It was just a human mistake.
Yeah.
That's the direction.
Well, and a phrase that we've come to use a lot here recently is that phrase is doing a lot of work in her statement. So the truth is, and I can say this because I've seen it, the truth is that document release was several hundred pages. And there were multiple people, families in there. And by the way, I'm just going to say this right now. I'm not publishing anything, related to any of that sensitive information. I do have one little page that I'm going to publish. It's really actually kind of funny. It's the only humorous part in there. But the only page I'm going to publish is where John Balow says, hey, we're not going to publish this because it's sensitive information. But the only reason I'm going to show you that is just to prove, I do have a copy of the documents. But other than that, I just made the decision that none of this needs to be out in the public.
Well, it isn't really the issue.
No, it's not.
So, I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
Besides that, it's kind of boring when you publish something that's redacted to the point that...
Well, the copy I have is not redacted.
Yes.
If I were to publish it, which I'm not going to do,
right,
I would have to redact the crap out of it.
That's what I'm saying. You'd hold up...
The page would be all red or all black. All right. So the first phrase, the first sentence in that statement, the unfortunate release of limited unredacted information. It wasn't limited. It was several hundred pages. So you can take that however you want to mean it. Now, the next paragraph says she added that the mistake was quickly identified and corrected in the online folder where the department keeps public records request results. The department spoke with the recipients of the files the day after Degenfelder learned of the error. Well, that's not exactly what her statement said. Her statement originally said, we spoke to the family that was affected. Okay, it was not the family. It was multiple families. And at the time, Degenfelder or her office sent out this press release or this apology, whatever you want to call it, she hadn't spoken to multiple families. She had spoken to one family. Words mean things.
2 + 2 is 4, not 5 if you want it to be 5. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to stand up for language. Words mean things.
Words mean things. And so it's not the family, it's multiple families. And at the time this press release went out, when it was sent to us originally at the Open Range Record, she had not apologized to everybody. And you can go online and you can see the comments yourself. Several parents said, well, there's nobody talked to me about it and my information's in there. Now, at this point, there are social media posts that confirm that indeed Megan Degenfelder's office did contact those people. Okay, so where we're at right now is, people have been talked to. When this thing went out, no. Okay, so words mean things, and there's some serious CYA going on here. And here it is. Now listen to this quotation. Now remember, the paragraph before in the Cowboy article says, quote, the department spoke with the recipients of the files the day after Degenfelder learned of the error. Quote, I also spoke personally to the family of the student whose information was not redacted. It was not the family. It was multiple families, as in more than one. She said the Department of Education is revisiting processes and creating a corrective action plan to ensure that it doesn't happen again. I apologize for this unfortunate mistake. Okay, well, the corrective action plan, Superintendent, is to be in the office. I mean, to have more direct oversight of the people underneath you in that bureaucracy. Because I don't think that there's any answer that you can come to except that obviously this was human error. And we know that because the Department of Education sent out a second tranche of documents, and those documents were redacted. Although Dr. Libby pointed out that the second batch that he received still contained sensitive information that had not been redacted. And so let me back up and just give you the broad strokes here. So public records requests, 300 pages, or give or take a little bit, were released, unredacted. Problem is identified. Superintendent's office releases a second batch. All of these, that not all of them, but there's a bunch of redactions in those, but they missed a bunch too. So in other words, they tried to correct the problem, but the genie was already out of the bottle. The unredacted files were already out there. And so I don't know what they could have done except to hope that whomever had received that first batch deleted them. But I'm telling you, my friends, that this is a major problem here. Whether it was a human error or not, whether it was a mistake or not, is kind of irrelevant because the results are there. You're put in charge of handling confidential information, and you didn't do your job, period.
Yeah, ask Becky Hadlock how she feels about it.
We'll get to Becky Hadlock in just a second. But the point here is that I don't think that, Megan Felder was doing her job. Let's see here. The error came to light after a member of a group of parents in Sweetwater County announced publicly that the district had asked the Department for public records requests for a substantial amount of parent complaints. The Wyoming Department of Education responded with what one parent described as a huge file dump, which later investigated was completely unredacted. It remains unclear whether the breach was violated the Public Records Act. Violating that act carries a civil penalty of $750 in fines. Presented with parts of the act to forbid disclosure of certain confidential information, the parent said she was unaware if these files matched that description. Now we've also got, and I'm not gonna tip this off to you, but we've also got another very interesting email that hopefully we'll be able to publish in that article. So this is a big thing and a big deal, and I think that it's going to have some major implications on the governor's race. Parents don't forget when they get screwed over. And this is, those parents in Sweetwater County, this has been a controversy that's been going on for a long time. The Cowboy themselves have published several articles about it.
A lot of controversies coming out of that part of the state.
Oh, yeah. And it's, and again, Ken, I don't know how you put, how you fix this. You have very sensitive information that was released about children. This is a bad deal.
Well, one way that you could take a little bit of a reflection of what Management Council did just here a couple days ago. And the answer for what happened with the so-called Checkgate thing is, well, we obviously need more training.
Okay.
We need more focus. We need more attention. And I think there's some truth in that. You know, some of these things had never occurred to anybody before they reached out and grabbed the check. You know, I wouldn't have thought about it first because it never occurred to me that there was,
Right.
you know, but perception becomes reality.
Yep. Sometimes. Mhm.
And that's where we're at. So I think that when the next person that comes and takes this job needs to be completely aware of the gravity of every situation. And we kind of got into this yesterday. That's one of the hard things about being in the public spotlight is it's relentless. You never get a chance to let your guard down.
Well, and let me just give you another example. And maybe I mentioned this yesterday. I think I did. When all the Dan Zwanitzer stuff was going on, I got my hands on a document that had his exact new address. And, you know, it later came out. But personally, I made the decision I'm not going to release that. You know, however much bad stuff I had on Dan Zwanitzer, you release personally identifiable information. And what happens, there's how many cases of swatting have we seen, you know, of public officials? You know, people calling the cops and, you know, trying to get the SWAT team out there or, you know, just harassing people. That's you don't do that. That's not right.
What you have to do, I think, in the face of any of this is keep your focus on what the real story is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the devil's in the details, but some of the details don't necessarily enhance the truth of the story.
Right.
I hope that makes sense.
Well, and I don't think that they're necessary, right? As people, we want to hear all the nitty-gritty details out of them, but you know, to get the thrust of the story, you don't need all of that stuff. And you can ask any of our journalists. They get irritated with me sometimes because I'll read a story and there'll be, you know, a section of it that's kind of irrelevant to whatever they're talking about, and I'll just axe the whole thing. Simply because it doesn't do anything for the story.
But that's what a reader will do. And that's sometimes if somebody is writing, it's very important to you. So you assume it is to your reader as well. So a third person comes in, looks at it, says, this really shouldn't be here. And they're doing you a favor if you get edited that way.
Yeah. And it's, you know, again, we don't need to know all the salacious details behind everything. And
oh, yeah, we do.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
Well, I mean, fine. You can believe that. And if you believe that, by the way, Ken, have I told you about the really nice piece of beachfront property I have around Guernsey? We should have your people call my people. We'll talk about it. All right. So other people that are having problems in the state, Becky Hadlock. I mean, the gifts just keep on giving with this one. This is a piece in the Cow Pie as well. Weston County Clerk Becky Hadlock to be arrested, court documents say. And I quote, authorities plan to arrest the Weston County's clerk ahead of her civil trial on whether she should remain in office. The Weston County Clerk, Becky Hadlock's office, botched 2 unopposed races, and it was actually more than that. You see, this is the problem with journalism. It wasn't 2 races that Becky Hadlock botched. It was more than that. So there was Chip Nyman's race, there was the school board race, and there was the county commissioner's race. I mean, all 3 of those, had problems in them. And so, if you're going to write about something, get the details right. I mean, it's so frustrating because, in my position, I try really hard to get the facts right.
My argument.
I know, details matter.
Yeah.
But good Lord, if you're going to print an article, get your facts right before you do it. It wasn't 2 unopposed races. It was Chip Nyman's race. That was unopposed. And then there was a school board race and a county commissioner's race. So it was actually 3, not 2, or not 1. It was 3. Continuing. All right. So botched 2 unopposed races. We know that's actually more than that. In 2024, improper ballots from outside the printing company were mixed into the election with proper ballots. And Ken, we have to pause right here because once again, I was right. From the very beginning of this whole controversy, I told you, hey, what probably happened is some incorrect ballots were mixed in with the real ballots, and they just did the whole shuffle thing, hoping that nobody would find out, and they did. So put another check mark on the Dave was right
I have a
column.
little gift for you as soon as it arrives.
You do. You do.
Yes.
If you
What
do
is it?
not appease us. Well, what is it you want?
Oh, it's a
We
gift. I
want-
can't know. Hadlock called for a hand count, and her office produced a correct tally in time for a delayed election canvassing. She had filed a post-election audit with the Wyoming Secretary of State's office, which reportedly missed 21 flawed ballots out of a sample audit of 75. The Secretary of State, Chuck Grace, has repeatedly said before multiple legislative committees in the past 17 months that he believes Hadlock didn't conduct an audit, though telling his office that she had, or that the audit was fraudulent. Then, after months of urging by Gray and some Weston County residents, Governor Mark Gordon in January recommended to the Wyoming Attorney General to file an action to have Hadlock removed from office. So a lot of this, too, the biggest problem is she submitted a post-election audit report to the Secretary of State's office that said that, yeah, there was no problems in our election. Everything was fine. I don't know what you guys are all concerned about because everything is going good, when in reality, there were lots of problems with it. So there are multiple things here. Let's see here. The new charges. But Hadlock might be in jail and unable to make it. Her attorney, Ryan Semerad, wrote in a Thursday trial planning document in the case. By the way, down in the back of the stack of stuff, I have another article completely unrelated to this in which Ryan Semerad is mentioned. Let's see here. Defendants understand that the Natrona County District Attorney's Office, acting with a special prosecutor in Weston County, intends to file several new criminal charges against Hadlock related to the felony-level crimes she allegedly committed, wrote Semerad in the filing. Those include allegations related to the post-election audit, he added, and it's unclear which laws these charges would cite. Wyoming's election code lists some criminal penalties for officers who do not follow it. So more charges coming. She's probably going to get a brand new set of shiny bracelets. And, you lie on documents, and that's what's going to happen.
I'm sorry, but I still don't take any delight in that.
I'm not delighting in it.
Yeah.
I'm delighting in that the story is one that just keeps on giving.
I think it kind of, in light of the last story with Megan, all of us who are in public office have a certain amount of responsibility and a certain amount of gravity goes into that. And I look at this thing that happened as a teaching.
Oh, it's definitely a teaching moment.
That if you make a mistake, own it. The more, the real crime here was not in making the mistake in either case. It's how do you deal with it? And, how do you respond to it? How do you own it? How do you do whatever you can do to make it right? And in some cases, you can't make it right. It just is what it is. And you contrast that with the press's reaction to, for lack of a better term, Checkgate. And there's two-edged sword. Live by the sword, die by the sword. There are so many truths in there. Judge not, lest you be judged.
That one gets abused a lot.
So you're going to be judged by the same measure. One example, just very briefly, that happened here this morning. You were going through the opening segment, and you're talking about Jesus saying to the two.
Right. Well, it's actually one.
And it was actually one. And that, frankly, is one of the reasons that I brought it up, is I'm going to hold you to the same standard that you're going to hold somebody else to.
Sure, as you should.
And I ask you to do that to me, but do it off the air.
But there's one other wrinkle in this thing, Ken, that for me makes it a little bit more tantalizing. That the story that Becky Hadlock gave from beginning to end has changed multiple times. She told me something entirely different on the phone than she told the Newsletter Journal. And so, through this whole thing, her story has changed. And I think that one adds another dimension to this one. And maybe it's a similar dimension to the Degenfelder story, that, hey, you didn't exactly tell the truth when you came out of the gate with this thing. And, that's going to come back and haunt you. The other part of it that I think that we ought not forget is that Becky Hadlock was subpoenaed by the legislature to appear, and essentially what she did is tell them, no, sorry, I've got other plans. From the Cowboy. Last summer, Legislative Management Audit Committee Chairman Christopher Knapp subpoenaed Hadlock to appear at a September 29th meeting of the committee. But first, court documents say legislative staffers invited Hadlock to appear on that date, and she said that she had appointments and she couldn't make it. Knapp sent the subpoena to Hadlock days before the meeting, but her answer remained the same. Yeah, I got other plans. She's calling her parents to testify at her removal trial, as she said she was driving them to the out of county medical visits they had planned long in advance. Because she didn't appear at the September 29th meeting, Hadlock now faces a misdemeanor subpoena dodging charge in Casper Circuit Court. That trial is set for May 28th and 29th. So, you know, there's a lot of things that are in this whole thing. One, not handling, you know, the duties of your office. In this case, I think that there was at least an attempt to cover it up. The changing stories is what I'm referring to. The post-election audit report.
And then trying to avoid accounting for what happened.
Yeah,
by avoiding coming to actually talk to the committee.
And I mean, she's been through this whole thing. She's been defiant.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference right there.
Right.
You know, and, you know, saying that she was going to fight the removal trial, and man, just to own it.
Yeah, if she'd have come out in the beginning and said, "Hey, I made a mistake. This is what happened. Human error."
Well, and she knew it too.
Yeah.
You know, the question I asked her in that interview was, so you know, how many undervotes do you generally get in a race? You know, because there was like 1,000 or 1,200 or a huge number in Chip Nyman's race. Well, how many do you usually get? And the answer there is actually a pretty small number. But even so, she's like, well, I don't know. I can't. I'm going to have to go look that up. Okay, whatever. But Becky Hadlock, yeah, she's got some more appointments with the court, and I can't say that it's entirely unwarranted. All right, let's go ahead and take our third break. And when we come back,
use the word warrant.
I know. Did you catch that?
I did.
That was good. All right, let's take a break. Hey, if you can get the right button. You got it? All right. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely, and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country, and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. if you want to sell your house or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Cowboy State Politics is only going to get stronger. This program is expanding at a rate faster than an F-15 over... No, okay, so it's not really that fast, but it is getting bigger.
Too early.
Cowboy State Politics Live, the podcast, the open range record. We're breaking some news later on this afternoon. Well, I don't know if it's really breaking news, but we've got another enlightening piece coming later on today. Make sure that you don't miss it, and don't miss the installment of Weekend Update on the podcast tomorrow. Have a brand new episode for you.
Sorry for missing my cue there, but I do want to say that there is something going on. A fighter jet has gone down over Iran, apparently about a half hour ago.
Yeah. All right. So from MSN, U.S. fighter jet crashes in Iran. Search launched for 2 crew members. And I quote, a U.S. fighter jet crashed in southern Iran on Friday, prompting a search and recovery mission for the 2-person crew, the 2 U.S. officials said, marking the first known instance of an American aircraft going down inside hostile territory in the month-long conflict. The fate of the crew was not immediately clear. The aircraft involved appeared to be an F-15E, according to officials, and images of the wreckage were circulating on Iranian state media. The Pentagon did not immediately respond for comment. Let's see here. U.S. jet was downed by an anti-aircraft fire by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So let's see here. Yep, the rest of that is just recap. So prayers go out to our service members that went down with that plane. Hopefully we'll find them really quick. All right, Ken. So now we have the interim session that's not really a session, the interim to talk about. From the Turkey Vulture, lawmakers set priorities to discuss the 2027 legislative session. And I quote, on the heels of a 2026 session, state leaders got back to work Wednesday to outline their priorities for the rest of the year. A wide array of topics was proposed, including ongoing ones like continued dives into Wyoming's elections and gambling industry. That's one that you guys got to get a handle on. This whole gambling thing. I really do not want Wyoming to turn into South Dakota. And I would really like to know when we officially legalized casinos.
You know, that's a question I'd like to know, too. There was a kind of an idea that, okay, the tribes are a separate nation, therefore they can do those sorts of things. And then it's one of those give an inch and we'll take a mile. And I don't know how we got to where we are. It was never our intention.
No.
And now the problem is that the other side has seen, wow, this is a huge revenue source.
Yeah.
We do not want the state of Wyoming dependent upon income from this illicit activity. There are more troubles come with it than the money would ever do any good. Might as well legalize prostitution while you're at it.
Well, and my question is, so down on Coffeen Avenue, which if you've never been to Sheridan, Coffeen is one of the main drags when you come into Sheridan from the south. But there's a couple of, I guess, horse racing parlors might be a better way to describe it. And then there's one that the original sign said Wyoming Downs on it. Now the sign says Lucky Sevens. So that's not exactly a horse racing parlor. I mean, to me, that just screams, I'm a casino, come in.
Yeah, to me, it's not good any way that you look at it. You see, for one thing, we've basically stood up another committee to see what we're going to do about this. Here in Sheridan, one of those businesses wanted to take a move, and they moved in right beside the.
Well, it's
the
right
abortion
beside the pregnancy center.
Yeah, right beside the pregnancy center, and between them and an insurance agency. They're worried about people trying to come and go with a lot of seedy things in the back, and who has to build the fence, and all of these issues that come up. And
well, and not to mention the proliferation of gambling addiction. Gambling is one of those things that, I mean, I'm pretty happy with it being in a different state. I just don't want it here.
Well, like prostitution, you're not going to stop it.
No,
it's going to happen, but you don't want to, by legalizing it, and then taking money from it. Now you're participating in it, so the state of Wyoming becomes a pimp. You know?
Well, it's funny. Funny you bring that up, because I asked their lobbyist one day, the gaming industry, their main lobbyist, and I said, "Now hold on a minute. Explain to me why these machines are not slot machines, because they operate exactly like a slot machine. You put money in, the little dials go around, and if you're lucky, you hit, and most of the time you're not." And he told me that they're really games of skill. You see, if you knew all of the outcomes of all of these historic horse races, then you could accurately predict how these games were going to operate. Okay, who knows all the results of historic horse races? So they're slot machines, right? Oh, no, they're games of skill. The only skill involved is putting that $1 bill or $20 bill in the slot. Who can get it in there the fastest? I mean, that's the only skill that's involved. But I think that there's a lot of really, really terrible ancillary effects of legalizing gambling. And it's not just, like Ken, as you mentioned, it's not just setting up the gambling hall or the casino. It's everything else that goes along with it. And it's gambling addiction and I'm assuming these gambling establishments have a liquor license too that goes along with them.
Yeah, I don't know about all of that necessarily, but when we were in committee and we were trying to pin them down, what does this cost society? Because there is a cost to society, and everything was inconclusive. We really don't know, but look at all the money that the possible revenue that's there.
Look at the possible cash.
Yeah, and that distraction that's a problem.
Big time. And it's, Article 7, Section 20 in the Constitution. It says the legislature's duty is to, regulate, immorality and vice of every sort.
And you got to think about when was that written and what would then be the meaning of morality.
Well, when that was written...
A little different than today.
Well, when that was written shortly there before, I mean, Buffalo, Wyoming was listed as the most dangerous town in America. We're talking like gunfighter type days. So, all right, let's get back to these interim topics. The Management Council met in Cheyenne on Wednesday to discuss proposals that were submitted to the state's 19 committees. Joint corporations, and this utterance by Nancy Case is fascinating to me. Representing joint corporations, Senator Cale Nancy Case and Representative Chris Knapp presented a list that placed fraud protection and election reviews ahead of 911 funding and electricity rates. Senator Slithers Nethercott challenged this hierarchy, asking why election reforms, of which several have failed over the past few sessions, were being prioritized over safety and reliability of 911 and rising electric bills. A quote, I hear we want to do election review again and redo the same bills that died just 3 weeks ago in exchange for 911 funding, Slithers said. Case defended the ranking as a result of a Democratic vote within his committee, but he admitted, quote, if it were my dictatorship, I would not go down the road of elections this year. If it were my dictatorship, which... Okay, there's the word if in there, but we all know that Nancy Case doesn't want to do anything around elections. I mean, he's made a pretty solid couple of sessions of trying to defeat those. Let's see here. Management Council members eventually passed a motion to elevate electricity and the Public Service Commission issues to the committee's top priority. So who cares what the committee says? Slithers gets her way again. Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources decided to take a cooling off period regarding the controversial corner crossing trespass issue. Senator Bill Landon noted that while the topic is important, it was best to, quote, let that one sit over on the side for a little bit.
There's the same theme. Let's table that.
Yep.
Let's table election integrity because we don't like it and we're losing.
Yeah.
Even though they are winning. Let's just push this aside till after the elections, and you people who are a pain in our ass are going to be gone.
Yeah. Well,
that's
I mean,
what they're thinking.
That's exactly what they're thinking. You know, well, we'll deal with this next year. You hear that in the legislature a lot. Actually, what you hear is, well, this needs to be an interim topic. We don't need to talk about this bill right now. And then when it gets to time to talk about interim topics, it's, well, you know, we'll need to let this one sit on the side for a little bit. You know, as it relates to the corner crossing issue, I think that's a much more complicated problem than just, can you step over the little, you know, section marker and, you know, not trespass.
It's one of the most difficult things we've had to deal with. So
It's a big one. And, you know, I happen to side, you know, with the property owner on this one. I mean, it's
well, I certainly have that tendency, but there's also one of the greatest things about Wyoming is the amount of public land and the access to the same.
Sure.
And those two rights, you know, to me, private property rights are going to trump pretty much everything, because if you don't have that, now we might as well just go full on communist, in my view.
Well, let's take one issue that surrounds it, this helicoptering into public land parcels. I think you should have access to public land. And, you know, I mean, if you can do that without crossing, you know, a private property, then, you know, theoretically, I don't really see too big of a problem with that.
Well, they do have to cross private property.
Well, the airspace, right? This is why this is a complicated issue. So how much of the airspace above your property do you own? Do you own it to 10,000 feet? Or
if you own a piece of property and it becomes in vogue, and maybe somebody who happens to own a helicopter decides he can make some money by taking people in and out of there, and they're constantly going over your livestock.
Well, that's where I was headed with this.
Constantly going over your house or whatever. What rights are being violated of yours? It's not that much different than going out and cutting a fence so somebody can get their four-wheeler in there and drag their elk out.
Right. Okay, so where I was headed with that was the livestock. You know, if you're leasing a piece of federal property and you've got livestock out there, it doesn't do them any good to land a helicopter right beside them.
Or flying over it when they're on your own private property. But consider this. If you lease a residence, nobody has the right to come into that residence.
Correct.
So, you know, if somebody is leasing state land, to me, that ought to be treated like private land. They're paying a lease for it. They have rights to that. Well, that in itself also opens up a whole bunch of questions about how rich people could then come in and monopolize all the state land that they can possibly tie up under a lease and make money by using that for private.
What about the wildlife? We have laws against herding wildlife and chasing them around. If you get caught doing that, you're going to lose your hunting privileges. Yeah. But how do you handle that when a helicopter flies over? Hey, look, they're over there. Oh, we're having trouble finding a spot to land. Let's circle around a little bit.
There's a I forget what it's called, Bud, whatever they close it off in the springtime.
Bud Love.
The elk and calf. Yeah,
Bud Love.
Bud Love's Wildlife Refuge or whatever. Okay, so animals don't like to have a lot of people bothering them when we're in particular parts of the season.
Right, calving.
That could also apply to calving. It could apply to lambing, although I don't care if the lambs all get killed. But.
Oh, now, come on now. You know, don't complain about them. They're the sound and smell of money. You just relax.
Tommy and Bill are the only two sheep herders I like.
Oh, no. See, we should get into this. You know, there's your Sheridan County mess coming out again.
It's the old cattleman.
Right. You know, to heck with those sheep herders. You know, it's It's interesting for me living in Sheridan County, having grown up in Johnson County. That whole fight is still kind of alive and well.
It really is, you know.
Well, and invariably I'll run into somebody and this topic will come up, and I'll say something like, that name Kendrick is all over this town, but he really wasn't such a great guy. And I'll rattle off some story about one of the bad things he did, and it's fun. All right. Anyway, back on topic. Ken, what is the Joint Appropriations Committee doing during the interim?
We're working essentially on two things. One is working out the finances behind whatever becomes of the Wyoming Business Council. And another one, when the state set up the retirement system, basically you get what you paid for, in the retirement system that they got everybody put on does not allow for COLAs.
Okay.
So for
what do you mean by COLA?
Well, it's a cost of living allowance. It's a raise to keep up with inflation. So what's happened is you've got people on a fixed income that essentially for the last 17 years haven't seen any kind of an increase to that. Well, that becomes problematic. And so we're going to be looking at how do we finance this? How do we make that retirement better? How do we afford to do that? How do we take care of the people that have taken care of us, if you want to put it in that characteristic? I personally don't think government takes care of it.
Yeah, I don't think they do.
But that's the argument. They gave their career to the state. They gave their career to the students, and they should be taken care of. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. So
well, and I was going to add in there, and they have been well compensated for it.
Some would argue otherwise, but it depends on where you're.
It depends on your perspective.
Sure.
It's so I think those are good topics.
Now there's another one. You talk about being well compensated. We have prosecuting attorneys and judges and other, basically where you take a professional who could go on the outside and make $400,000 a year fairly easily, and we're willing to pay them $150,000 as a state employee, and so there's a bit of you get what you pay for. And I'm not disparaging anybody that is an attorney that's working for the state, but you don't do it for the money, that's for sure. And so the idea is to try to have a decent working wage where you actually can get some good attorneys to do these jobs. And there are some changes that need to be made. This is something that hasn't been addressed in 17 or 18 years. Appropriations made an allowance. I think we spent $3 million to spread out among them and give some increases for the next 2 years over the biennium. But we need a long-term fix. And I have a bill to do that, and basically appropriations has been saddled with helping make that, rather than a personal bill, a committee bill to try to address that issue. Yeah.
Now this is kind of a topic where Ken and I sort of disagree on it a little bit. I think we just
every right to be wrong.
Well, I mean, the views of the producer are not necessarily those of the host, though they should be. But I think that you and I only differ on a detail out of it. One good example is in Sheridan County. So the prosecutor's office here can't retain attorneys. Just because can't pay them enough. Now, there's good reasons why they're unable to.
Yeah, well, so what happens too then, just to be fair, is then they go out and they contract at an hourly rate.
Yep, that's where I was headed.
Which far exceeds, and so we end up we're gonna pay it one way or the other. Like, if you buy a new vehicle, you don't have to pay maintenance costs, but you're paying for the vehicle.
Right, and and part of it here. Let me get the last of my snooty coffee. Anyway, but one of the things that goes into this, and this perhaps is specifically Sheridan County, is that the county commissioners waste a tremendous amount of money.
No.
Yeah, I know. On things that we really don't need. And then they whine and complain that we can't fund the prosecutor's office. Well, maybe if you hadn't spent $3 million over there, or maybe if you don't give $500,000 away to nonprofits, then you could fund the prosecutor's office.
And this is something that you're supposed to do by statute, by the Constitution. This is what we've got to have, and we have to pay for. And yes, that came into the discussion. And that's why I'm glad that this appropriations is going to be able to look at that, because we need to be able to prioritize it. So you give a block grant to the county and they go out and waste it, and then there's somebody that has to be paid.
Yeah.
But there's no money left, then what happens?
Yeah, exactly. Right. You end up with a prosecutor's office that has to spend way more money. But I think one of the easy fixes, and by easy I mean it seems in my mind to be the simplest one. We just run a bill that says you must fund the prosecutor's office first.
Yeah, but see, then the argument against that is, what about local control? You're telling the county commissioners how they have to spend their money. Same thing we did with silos in the schools.
Well, exactly.
Because at the local level, they're not doing their job.
And the way that it should work is that you should allow, your county commissioners, your city council, what have you, to handle the problems in their ballpark. But when you have city councils and county commissioners that refuse to handle the things in their ballpark, and it's causing harm to taxpayers and Wyoming citizens, well, then at some point, the legislature has to step in and say, look, you're not doing this. You have to do this. Therefore, we're going to make sure that you do this. And that's exactly what happened with the silos, with the education funding. Classroom money stays in the classroom. Period. And I love a lot of the articles I've read. Well, they're struggling with trying to figure out their budget. Well, that's because you've been screwing the teachers for so long. It's foreign to you to say, maybe we need to fund them first.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing with the prosecutors. Here's a crazy one. Quote, the committee's 7th priority caught the management council's attention: curling stones. And I'm talking about the sport of curling. Now, I've never done curling before, so I'm just assume it's a sport.
All curling stones that are made currently come out of Scotland, I believe it is.
Okay.
Well, it just so happens that we happen to have a very good, high quality, which is hard to find, granite that would be suitable here. And there's an idea, well, why do we just give them why don't we make them here?
Yeah.
We could do that, and there's a market. I think it's
okay, now wait a minute. You used the term market.
Well, yeah, it is limited.
To like 5.
So I found that funny. There are a couple of issues that just come up every now and then, and I mentioned this to Bob not too long ago. Whatever happened to the giant mules, the jack mules, or whatever they call them? An idea to be able to control the populations of the wild horses. We introduce these
mules,
and the offspring are sterile, but they're so big that they drive the stallions away. It's just kind of interesting, some of the things. When I signed up to go into the legislature, there were a few things I wanted to address and get there. But you find
curling stones was one of them. No
curling stones was not on my list.
I mean, how many curling stones are produced every year? It cannot be that many.
You wouldn't think so.
All right, so here's what the rest of it. So the committee's 7th priority caught the management council's attention: curling stones. Jim Anderson, senator from Casper, explained that the committee wanted to explore sourcing the stones in-state, noting that they can cost upwards of $10,000 apiece, and adding that there is a global supply shortage of curling stones. Everybody has to have something that's a little fun in their committee, Anderson said.
That's what he said.
Curling stones. I would like to know what the market for those is. Not how much they cost. How many you produce.
I'm sure. What committee was that?
Minerals? Let's see here. Minerals.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
I mean, it kind of does.
It's kind of a mineral. I'll bet if you watch this summer, you'll find the answer to that question.
Man. Okay. If you're talking about curling stones, you must be at the end of the priority list. I think that there's some other things that we could probably discuss of more importance.
Isn't it funny? And there are some other committees that are not able to get to some things that probably are of some importance. But it's not a fair world.
No. All right. The Education Committee plans to study the, quote, educational basket of goods and the impact of artificial intelligence in classrooms. The Select Committee on Blockchain. Well, let's talk about that for a second. You and I have been talking about AI for quite some time, discussing the potential pitfalls of it. AI in the classroom. I think that's a kind of a thorny issue.
That is an interesting issue. What about AI behind the judge's seat? What if courts were AI? There's a movie out called Mercy. I watched it last night. Pretty interesting.
Mercy, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
Interesting.
Where you have to try to prove your innocence to the AI thing?
It's taken in the near future, and this guy awakes from a drunken stupor chained to a chair, which would be his execution chair if in the next 90 minutes he can't prove his innocence.
Right.
It's a fun movie, but it brings up some things about AI, and it goes, we've had number of discussions about AI, and this is just one more in those that emphasizes some of the issues.
Well, yeah, and think about it from the perspective of a teacher, that you're teaching a lesson and hey, you need to write this paper. Here's what I want it on, and I want it due by next Friday. Well, right now it's pretty simple to tell the AI thing, hey, write me a paper on this, include this, this, and this. And the student doesn't learn anything that way.
Yeah.
You don't learn how to write.
There are actually teachers across the country, I saw an article on this a few days ago, that are requiring that term papers be written on a manual typewriter. Because you can't use spell check, you can't use AI and all those other things. And I think it's a fabulous idea.
Yeah.
Partly because that's how I had to write mine.
Well, exactly. All right. So let's go ahead and take another call here. And we got about 10 minutes left, so we got plenty of time for a call. Crystal from Farson, how are you this morning? How you doing, Crystal?
I'm doing good.
Excellent. I almost lost my life in Farson one time. There's the Farson.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's the Farson corner. I don't know if you know where I'm talking about, but it's like a right-hand turn, and the guy driving the van about killed me.
Oh, no.
So as long as we're taking a minute and spinning our wheels, the thing that I think of with Farson was a line from a song by Ben Rumson in Paint Your Wagon. He says, when I see a parson, I got to put my arse in the wagon that follows the tail of the crow.
All right, Crystal, what's on your mind this morning?
Oh, well, I just wanted to comment about all these articles coming out about the Wyoming Department of Education with letting out unredacted information.
Yeah, bad deal.
Yeah, we actually were in that information, we found out.
Oh, you're the Crystal Walker from the Unredacted Files.
Oh, don't give her whole name.
Well, it's already out there. But I had noticed a lot of the articles talk about that Megan says she contacted parents and apologized. We still have yet to hear from anyone. I found out from the parent who received the unredacted information that our information was in there and my son's information.
Ooh, so you haven't you haven't heard from the Department of Education yet, huh?
Nope.
Wow.
Not anything.
Well, that is not
And
what the statement
we're
from
being told.
Yeah, that's not what we're being told at all.
right. No, we've never been contacted, and we were pretty frustrated because it also violated Title IX, as ours involved a Title IX case.
Yeah, that's not good. And all right, let me just see if we can tiptoe around this. What does Title IX entail? I guess maybe that's the question where we might be able to get around it.
Yeah. So Title IX is kind of a broad thing, but it's still slightly specific. I don't quote me with a specific definition, but
Sure.
it typically has to do with let me think of the correct wording here. It involves like harassment, assault. Sorry, I'm not thinking of the correct word for
No,
it.
I think we get the point. I don't know that we need to go too much
It
further.
deals
on that.
with equity and justice between sexes. I think,
Yes.
So
Okay, there we go. Leave it to the legislator. So, I mean, are you you know, I mean, have you had any communication with the Department of Education surrounding this release of documents?
No, not the release. We did before, but since the release, and I only found out from the parent who received our information, they contacted me to let me know, and I've not heard anything from the Wyoming Department of Education.
Well, that's wrong because publicly they're saying something else entirely.
Right.
One question for you, Crystal. So, how long has your particular case been going on? I mean, you've got a complaint out there. How long has it been dragging out?
It's been a little over a year.
Wow. Now, so you had the Department of Education was conducting a what did they call it? Special monitoring down in Rock Springs or in Sweetwater County. Was your case involved in that as well?
No, our case was not involved with that, that was why I was surprised we were in the unredacted release, because from what I understood, it was about special education, and ours was not involved in that.
Well, and I can tell you there is a ton of stuff in that tranche of documents, and there under no circumstances should a lot of it have been released. You know, human error or otherwise. Right. All right. So what's the next steps, do you think? Have you contacted the Department of Education to say, hey, you missed some people?
We haven't yet. We do have a lawyer, and so he's kind of handling it from that point.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry that happened to you. It's, we've been, of course, that we've been covering this trying to cover this from the beginning, and I've been absolutely shocked.
But thank you for coming out and letting us know.
Yeah.
You're supporting what we're trying to let people know, and you validate our point. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for calling in.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, I guess, let's see here. The other thing, how do I do this? You know what? Probably a good suggestion is to have you reach out to our journalist, Dawn, and talk to her. Have you had an opportunity to do that yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, let's see here. Is this your cell phone number that I'm talking to you on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So if you just hang tight, I'll send you a text message with Dawn's contact number in there, and
perfect.
And that way you can talk to her yourself. And I don't know how long you listened to the program today, but we're planning another article that we're going to drop later on today, and it's going to be on this very topic. So I'm sure that that Dawn would love to talk to you.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Crystal. You have a good afternoon, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, so that validates our point that what the superintendent was saying is kind of a load of bull crap.
It gives a reward to those people who hang on to the end. You got to see news made as it happens.
Yep, as it happens. And that's the fun part of one of the fun parts of doing this job, that things happen and you're right in the middle of it. And that's an important point there that Crystal made.
You read about it in the cow pie and you realize how horrible they're reporting.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah, I was right there when it happened.
Yeah.
All right, my friends, that pretty much does it for a busy broadcast 2 hours on the program. Don't miss Weekend Update tomorrow. Have a brand new episode for you. And keep listening. Thank you for paying attention to everything that happens on Cowboy State Politics. And we'll be back with the live program on Tuesday. Have a good weekend. Go to church, my friends. Go study the Word. Find out why we are celebrating Good Friday and celebrating the resurrection. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio, I'm David Iverson, and this